This weekend, almost 400 people gathered in Tallaght for the second annual Jewish Anti-Zionist Congress. This three-day event comprised speeches, workshops, and discussions about Israel and Palestine from a host of speakers from around the world. I went along to ask people why they had come to the Congress.
The Congress is giving a space for Jewish people and for people who understand the difference between Zionism and Judaism and can separate the two.
I'm here from London. I want to meet anti-Zionist Jews from across the world to talk about what we can do to support the struggle in Palestine, to bring an end to the genocide, an end to the occupation, an end to apartheid, and what our role as Jews is in that process.
Well, I suppose the main reason that I'm here today is to be in solidarity with Jews who do not support Zionism. And I think that's hugely important. And I abhor the attitude that exists, maybe mainly in America and some ways across Europe, that Irish people are somehow anti-Semitic because we speak out against the actions of the Israeli state, which is not the case. We're not anti-Semitic, but we don't agree with the actions that are taking place in Gaza and the West Bank at the moment.
Yeah, my name is Yassine. I'm from Vienna. I came to this Congress. I've been through one last year as well. And there was a lot of very valuable lessons shared by fellow comrades in the cause, especially by Jewish Anti-Zionists, which I thought was very enriching last year as well, because they play a very important role in liberation for Palestine.
Stalls at the Congress sold a range of memorabilia, including an Intifada t-shirt and a book written by the leader of Hamas, who masterminded the October 7th massacres.
I've been to Gaza 11 times. I've been to West Bank. I've been even into the Zionist entity before, where I was brutally beaten by the police and put in hospital.
This wasn't just a regular anti-Zionist Congress, this was specifically a Jewish Congress. So I asked people how important this element was.
It's something reassuring that in this crisis of humanity that we're seeing in the world, that we actually have people from the Jewish background coming out and speaking for what's true and what's right. And that's so reassuring.
I think that a lot of Jews have been really sickened by the way that our identities have been weaponized in order to justify a genocide. A big reason why I was drawn into this movement was because I read about people during the Holocaust who looked back on that time and they said, I wish I could have done more. And people always say, what would I have done during the Holocaust? Well, you would have done exactly what you're doing right now. And I want to be able to look back and say that I did all that I could to prevent a genocide taking place.
It's particularly important to have that representation of Jewish in the headline of the Congress, because being Jewish does not mean that you support anti-Zionist policies, that you support expansion of Israel in the area. And it has become very conflated by other parties, and it's really, really important to have this headline to show that it is not the same, that there are so many people around the world who are both Jewish and anti-Zionist.
It is worth noting that the Jewish population in Ireland is very small, only about 2,000 people, certainly not large enough for a Congress of this size. Most of the speakers were not Jewish, and it seems neither were most participants. While it wasn't possible for me to know the religion of everyone there, I did note that Congress offered lunch, but it did not include a kosher option. Likewise, the Congress continued through Saturday, the Jewish Sabbath, without interruption.
I mean, it's kind of a little oxymoronic, Jews against Zionism, because so far as I can tell, I'm looking for that one Jewish person that says that Israel is not a representative of my culture or my religion, emphatically. And I'm reading the literature here, and I still don't see it. Now, my partner is Jewish, and she's a very important part of the anti-Zionist movement. I'm just looking for answers right now.
So as I mentioned, I grew up in South Africa. My mother was Austrian, she was Viennese. She survived the Holocaust in Vienna, mainly through being hidden in a coal cellar on and off for 3.5 years. She lost dozens of her family, mainly at Theresienstadt and at Auschwitz, where I have lectured on genocide prevention. After the war, she met my father, who was South African, in London. They went back to South Africa together. And my mother quickly made the observation that she felt black South Africans were treated much like the Jews of Europe had been treated during the Second World War.
Controversially, one of the planned speakers at the Congress was Abubaker Abed, who supported the October 7th attacks. He also justified a terrorist attack on a synagogue, called Israelis terrorist parasites who must be removed from our planet, and said Jewish supremacy must be eradicated. He prayed to God to curse the Jews, complained that Jewish lobby groups control everything in the West, and called the New York Post the Jew York Post. These views would be controversial, to say the least, at a Jewish Congress, something indirectly referenced by one of the speakers.
I would also like to mention that we were supposed to have Abubaker Abed with us today, genocide survivor from Gaza. Unfortunately, due to health reasons, he's not here with us, and there were also some complications which we managed to overcome, but I will be very honest about it. There were certain expressions that were kind of very upfront by Abubaker, and that caused some concern. But we felt that this is exactly the voice that is needed to be heard right now. Whether people feel comfortable about it or not, this is the voice.
I asked participants to tell me why they were anti-Zionist and what the problem with Zionism was.
Well, I don't believe in the principles that one group of people are lesser than another or ought to be displaced so that another group can be accommodated. That's abhorrent to me. And I think as an Irish nation, we experience our own displacement.
Zionism is racially motivated. It's white privilege, period. There's nothing religious about Zionism except what we've made it since 1936. It was imposed upon the Jewish people, as far as I can tell. Again, I'm not Jewish, so I can't speak for them.
I mean, I'm anti-Zionist mainly because I know the history of Palestine and I can see what's happening, and I can see that Zionism has always been sort of a nationalist movement attempting to put one people over another.
My personal history is that I am a white South African, and I grew up in the formative years of apartheid in South Africa. And we obviously have a lot of representation here of people like myself who come from that background, who can recognize the policies of Zionism and the complete overlap of the policies that Zionism is an apartheid system.
So what does this mean for Israel? Should the Jewish people have their own state, or should Israel cease to exist?
I'd say that the Israeli state was built on the dispossession of Palestinians. In 1948, that was 750,000 Palestinians cleared from their homes, which is known as the Nakba, but the Nakba is ongoing. So everything we're seeing today in Gaza, in the West Bank, it's part of an ongoing project to cleanse the land of Palestinians. A Jewish state is not worth the destruction of Palestinian life. I think Jews should live in the countries that they're living in, and they should be able to live freely there. We don't need a state to be safe, and we certainly don't need the state if the state is built on the destruction of the Palestinian people.
They can have their own state. If Jewish people want their own state, there's plenty of places in Europe that they can find space. They were also considering parts of Eastern Russia as a Zionist state. They were considering African state as a part of a Jewish state, like Liberia became a state. Fine, if Jewish people want their own state, go be there with other Jewish people, but don't take other people's land, don't take other people's rights, don't be racist and privileged and demand. If Jews want to stay in Palestine, I'd love that, because I know that there's plenty of Jews that would live side by side with Palestinians in an equal society, but they would also have to pay reparations.
I'm not opposed to Jewish people having their own state or to Israelis having their own state, but they haven't defined the boundaries of where that state exists. So it can move into Lebanon, it can move into Syria, it can move into part of Egypt. It is claiming the territory of the Palestinians. So I think, that's what needs to be defined. Where are the borders of the Israeli state?
My personal opinion is that Israel has the right to exist. There are a lot of nation states that have been born one way or the other out of colonial policies. However, Israel does not have the right to expand, does not have the right to wipe out people who are already living there. We know that has happened in other countries, and we know it has happened with Israel. I don't want to delegitimize people who recognize themselves as Israeli. However, they do need to realize that they cannot continue the policies that are currently being enacted.
Israel is over. There's no, I mean, you can pretend it's still a country, you can pretend it's still something, but eventually it will be done and in the waste bin of history. It is evil. There's nothing good about that country right now. Nothing. Zero.